Hello everyone! So in this video we are going to simulate the same simulation rules and seed in Game of Life 3D, 4D, 5D and finally in 6D. And we are going to see that these simulations produce quite different results. The first simulation is Game of Life 3D simulation with rules 4 neighbors getting born. And here we can actually see that this produces the giant squid glider we found on a previous video. So there's a shooter at the edge of the simulation and this seems to produce the giant squid glider with the delay of a few simulation steps. And here if we pause the simulation we can see the different forms step by step of this giant squid glider. And eventually they meet up at the center of the simulation and this produces this kind of pattern, a standing wave which disappears after a few frames. And this repeats a bunch of times and finally the shapes reach the edge of the simulation. And if we fast forward, they are then going to start filling the simulation space. But if we change the rules a little bit, let's say we add the rule 12 neighbors will survive, we see that when we start the simulation from the beginning, we can get quite different results, and this actually does produce shooter of a different type of glider. Here we can see that it actually produces the fighter jet glider we found on a previous video. So we can see here that if we change the rules a little bit, the same starting conditions can produce shooters of different gliders, and in this regard the fighter jet and the giant squid seem to be somehow related because they can be produced by the same starting conditions if the rules are just a little bit different. These fighter jet gliders also eventually meet up in the center of the simulation and they produce this short-lived standing wave here, which only lasts a few cycles of the simulation. Now if we change the rules so that cells with 11 neighbors are going to survive, we can actually see kinda strange behavior. I'm not sure if this is even a glider, but it's quite large form. It is kinda self-sustained and can go forward in the simulation. Right here we can see this form. It's going to go to the left soon and then it's kinda going on its own. It's very large and then finally these forms are going to be colliding in the center, producing another new form. And this central form is also disappearing after a while, but there are these blinking forms which do survive the collision. And the simulation quite rapidly goes all over the simulation space, and now we can see this large symmetrical shape taking place in the simulation. For this 3D simulation of Game of Life, each cell can have up to 26 neighbors. But now if we go forward into 4D simulations, we will see that the simulation produces quite different results. And here the cells can have up to 80 neighbors. The starting seed is seen here, so quite a simple shape. I'm not going to change it in any way, and we are going forward with the 4 neighbor cells getting born. And right from the get-go we get quite a different pattern with this 4D simulation. And now the simulation space is quite rich. As said, there are 80 neighbors per cell and there are quite a few opportunities for cells to get born in all kinds of directions. Not only to the X, Y and Z dimensions or directions. And this produces this kind of symmetrical pattern. There are no gliders whatsoever because the simulation space is quite cramped up. But also for this 4D simulation of the Game of Life we do have gliders, but those are with the rules 8 neighbored cells getting born. So we kind of need to double the rule there to get the glider behavior. If we go forward into 5D simulations, we are going to see that the cells have actually 242 neighbors. So that's already quite a lot. And here we also have much more information to be rendered on the simulation. And the opportunities for neighbors are already quite vast. But kind of curiously, still we see less population in the simulation space. And the common sense explanation for this is that now we have 242 opportunities for different neighbor counts for each cell. And the number 4 is quite small margin in this possible amount of neighbors. And therefore it's quite unlikely that cell is going to have exactly 4 neighbors as the simulation proceeds. Of course, if we add higher numbers to the cells getting born, let's say 8, 12 or numbers like this, we can get more crowded simulations. And we can easily show this by adding the rule 12 also here. And we are most likely going to see there being more cells being born in the simulation, because now there's also this new opportunity of number 12, which is also probably more natural to the 5-dimensional game of life simulation to appear. And we can see that more cells are getting born here. Maybe now this is more similar to the 4D simulation we had. But if we restart once again, we can see how this 5D simulation actually looks like. And for me, many times this seems that this more artificial looking forms that what we see in the 4D simulations. These are somehow very straight-edged and boxy forms which appear in the 5D game of life simulations. I haven't really studied this deeply, so I'm not sure how gliders appear in the 5D simulation and what kind of other phenomena arise there. But I have seen that these circuit board-like forms appear quite regularly. And also that these forms are still quite nice to look at. Especially these symmetrical forms. Moving forward into 6D, we can now see that there are already millions of cells in the simulation, so this is going to be a little more taxing for the computer, and also there's going to be a lot more information to be rendered in the simulation. We are using the same seed and neighbor count and starting the simulation from the beginning. And the starting phase looks quite similar, of course, but quite quickly we are going to diverge from the earlier simulations. And now, following the same principle as in the 5D, it seems that it's even less easy to find this number 4 in the neighbor counts. Now we have 728 possible neighbors in the simulation, and the number 4 is very unlikely to appear for any cell in the simulation. And this seems that the simulation is kinda struggling to survive, but we can use the rendering options to see all the information that is available in the simulation. So this is kinda 2D projection of the information, but if we use the perspective button, we can kind of expand the simulation information further, and now we can see that there's actually quite a lot of alive cells in the simulation, which were kind of hidden behind the true 2D projection of the simulation. And these patterns are actually quite nice to look at. They are very similar between the different layers of the simulation, but still having small variations on their forms as they are visualized towards the central shape. The rest of the audio in this video was sadly lost due to some technical difficulties, but if you like the video, please like and subscribe. The application download links are in the description, so you can get it for Android, iOS or Windows. Thank you very much for watching, and bye.